So we're joined now to discuss this by Robin Kniech, Councilwoman at Large for the City of Denver. A lot of this looks to me like writing down on paper what the city has already been doing, but writing this down is going to make a lot of people happy and a lot of other people angry. What is the message you're looking to send?
The message to our residents, both immigrant and non-immigrant, is that the city is sticking to what our local priorities require, which is protecting public safety, making sure folks call police when they need to, testify, show up at court if they need to be held accountable, and that's our job. Our job is not to be doing federal immigration enforcement. We've stated this, but it's been hard to find all of it written down in one place. So this is the one chance for folks to see it, understand it really clearly, and hopefully increase that level of trust that's lacking in our community right now.
The law is clear that city workers don't have to enforce federal immigration law, but how city workers behave certainly can impact whether or not immigration agents can do their jobs to watch out for, as one might say, bad hombres. Are these changes going to make it more difficult for immigration agents to do the vital work that they do?
We don't believe so. Right now, the federal government has the ability to seek warrants. They have fingerprint matches on the folks who are in our jail, and they have the ability to use the full force of the federal government to enforce their laws. It's just not simply our job to be supplementing their force or adding additional decision-making that we aren't qualified, we aren't trained, and it's not our legal responsibility.
You talk about the full force of the federal government. The fact is that immigration agents haven't been using the full force of the federal government. They've been relying on courtesy and cooperation from local jails to come in and pick people up and to interview them and that sort of thing. And this makes it pretty clear that from Denver's perspective, courtesy is done.
We have actually not been doing immigration enforcement work for quite some time. Most of this proposal, and it is at the proposal stage, is memorializing our existing practices. We close a couple gaps with this ordinance in terms of notifications, but again, ICE already knows who's in our jail when they're in our jail because of the fingerprinting system. So we're not taking away any information that they don't already have.
Well, the fact is, ICE may have the ability to find out, but ICE doesn't always know who's in the jails, as we've seen from numerous times where agents have panicked trying to grab somebody within the last 12 hours before they're about to get out. But Denver Sheriff's Office, under this proposal, would stop notifying ICE when there are people in the jail who are suspected of a crime and thought to be in this country illegally. Why ratchet back that cooperation?
This policy is all about the members of our community who are afraid to send their kids to school, afraid to call the police. We've heard from folks who were afraid to show up at their own probation appointments where we need them to show up to be holding them accountable because they were afraid notification would be happening. We have heard from witnesses unwilling to go forward with prosecuting cases. We've heard from a woman who was unable or unwilling to report child abuse because she was so afraid that police presence in her house would result in danger to herself and perhaps being separated from her own children. These are the things that keep all of us less safe, all of us. And I think that's really important. When immigrants don't feel comfortable calling the police, it's not just their own safety at risk, it's the entire community. That's what this is about. This is not a conversation about the federal government. It's not a conversation with the federal government. It's about the oath I took to serve and protect the people of Denver, who right now are less safe when people aren't using our public safety systems.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions has laid down a pretty clear line, saying if you're on this side of the line, then you're a sanctuary city, which, as we've discussed, is a term that has no formal meaning, but it is whatever they declare it to be for the purposes of their enforcement. He says, here's the line: you cannot prohibit local employees from cooperating with ICE. Here you're telling folks, don't cooperate unless you have to by law. You still convinced that Denver's on the safe side of the sanctuary city line?
Absolutely, and you've covered this. The law 8 U.S.C. 1373, we can all look it up, requires one thing, and that is for cities to share information on immigration status if they have it. We comply with that law. If someone were to call right now and ask us and we had the information, we would share it. Any proposals we've put forward are clear that we would still do that.
But you would collect less info, so you'd have less info to share. Am I correct?
This is an example where we're already not collecting it, generally speaking. If you ask our agencies, is there a list where you're writing these things down, where you're asking these questions, they will tell you no. This makes it clearer. It makes sure that our public can see that because we don't have a written policy on it. But as a practice, we're already not asking except where we're required to by law. We will keep asking where we're required to by law, and any proposals we put forward is really clear. This is about complying with federal law. It's just about not doing more that isn't required.
And one last question for you. I think a lot of folks understand the idea of we want every person in the city, whether they're here illegally or not, to feel comfortable calling police to get help or to save somebody else's life. Once we cross into the legal system and somebody is suspected of being a danger to our community, why does that person deserve an added level of deference?
I would actually reverse the question. It's not someone's race or their immigration status that commits a crime. If someone commits a crime in the city and county of Denver, they will be held accountable. We will arrest, we will prosecute, we will hold them accountable. Nothing in this proposal, nothing in our current practices changes that, but it is not our role to figure out what the immigration consequences should be of that. That's the federal immigration system. It's just not our job.
All right, Robin Kniech, at-large City Councilwoman for Denver. Interesting proposal. Let's continue the conversation here and elsewhere.
Thanks for the opportunity.